podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the Golden State Killer. It's probably one of the worst serial killers I've ever heard of, just because of the amount of crimes and different type of crimes he's done.
Like, you heard about the case of Jeffrey Dahmer, Ed Gein, all that. He probably trumps it because there's so much he's done. So we're going to begin talking about the beginning, where it all started. Joseph James DeAngelo was born on November 8th, 1945, in Bathe, New York, to Kathleen Louise Bosenko and Joseph James DeAngelo Sr. DeAngelo had a strained relationship with his father. He was known for his explosive temper and strict disciplinary measures, which contributed to DeAngelo's developing anger and resentment, which would later manifest in his violent acts.
Which is kind of confusing on how that didn't transfer over into his parenthood when he had children. His disturbing desires kind of began to take hold after serving in the Vietnam War. So after serving in the Vietnam War, he joined the Exeter Police Department in California after Vietnam, and he started on the police force in the San Joaquin Valley farm town of Exeter in 1973 to 1979. It was during this time that he kind of gained a little intimate knowledge of police procedures, which he would later use to elude capture and kind of perform his acts.
And one of the problems about this whole case is there wasn't a lot to go off of. He didn't really leave much at the crime scene, and they couldn't use any fingerprint analysis because he didn't leave any. So during his reign of his killing spree, he targeted individuals in suburban areas and often breaking into homes and subjecting his victims to hours of terror.
So in total, over his 12 years, 1974 to 1986, he killed 13 people. He raped 51, kidnapped 13, which I think is probably the same 13 he killed, and had 120 burglaries during that time. So one of his crimes was on September 11th, 1975. He broke into the home of Claude Snelling. Snelling was 45 at the time. He was a journalism professor at the College of Sequoia. He previously chased a prowler discovered under his 16-year-old daughter's bedroom window around 10 p.m. on February 5th, 1975.
Stop you there. That is disgusting. Disgusting.
So Snelling apparently had many other prowlers, which honestly, it probably was the same one. It was probably DeAngelo being there near that 16-year-old girl's bedroom window, which is really, really disgusting.
So, yeah, some of the worst cases. But here's another one of a murder case that happened in February 1978. The Golden State Killer, DeAngelo, shot and killed Brian Katie Maggiore. I don't want to...
Maggiore.
Maggiore. Don't want to butcher that. Who were walking their dog in the Sacramento area. Brian Maggiore and his wife, Katie, were on an evening walk with their dog. Yeah, of course. On just a peaceful day, they end up getting shot, chased down, murdered by the East Area Rapist. And that is another name he goes by under the varieties of other ones.
So, and then one of his other cases, in July of 1981, DeAngelo stood outside of Cherry Domingo's house. At around 3 a.m., DeAngelo shot Cherry's ex-husband, who was there, Greg Sanchez. And then he later proceeded to bound Cherry Domingo. So I think it was in a chair. He wrapped her legs and her arms in the chair. And then proceeded to rape her and beat her in the head. I don't know what with, but more than 10 times.
For some reason, my gut feeling feels like it's a mallet or something.
Probably something from inside the house. Because, he was a ransacker. He burgled things. He probably took something from the home to beat her. So, like I said, during his 12 years, 1974 to 1986, he eventually stopped. I think he had a family around 1980. I think his family was kind of just starting to build, and stopped around 1986. From that day, it took 40 years to identify him, and eventually found him in 2018.
He was known, like I was talking about the aliases. Some of them are Visalia Ransacker, as we heard, the East Area Rapist, and the Night Stalker, which were all during different time frames of his murderous career. So going on to another murderous case, I believe.
Which I wonder, I wonder with these different aliases, was he in different locations? Or was it
I believe it was.
same location, but just different aliases?
I believe it was probably different locations in San Fran. Maybe. I don't know. I guess they didn't really talk much about that. I haven't really heard much about it.
Probably.
But I don't know. Maybe if we do more research, then maybe
It
we
would
know.
probably make more sense for different areas.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because they literally, one of them is East Area Rapist, and that's more specific than the other ones. So another case, I believe, because it doesn't really say if he murdered her, but she died in her sleep, miraculously one night, on her case to find the Golden State Killer. We're talking about Mick Namara. She left behind 3,500 files related to the case, 37 boxes of case files from an Orange County prosecutor, and dozens of all other sources, all to catch the Golden State Killer, and died.
Which is kind of like a curse thing. I mean, if you work on a murder case, the murder case will kill you. But honestly, I think it was D'Angelo.
It's like it's too
Because,
perfect.
I mean, somebody tries to hunt him down, he figures it out, he eventually finds this person, information, whatever, and is able to kill her.
Well, not even just that. The stuff she left behind was the reason why the task force
Right.
were even close to even figuring it out.
And 3,500 files on one person,
Insane.
fitting in all 37 boxes, which is crazy. So, during the investigation process, which was kind of during the 90s, DNA was just kind of starting to become something, so kind of did take a little bit longer, but authorities eventually utilized DNA evidence and genealogical databases to narrow down a list of suspects in which D'Angelo was a part of. So after the utilization of DNA evidence, the next 4 months, investigators constructed a kind of a family tree of him, which eventually led to the doorstep of now 72-year-old Joseph James D'Angelo, which he was a former cop, like I said, which is definitely a disgusting thought.
Can't forget, he's a retired grocery store warehouse worker, too.
Right. And paid an oath to the country during the Vietnam War,
Yeah.
and still did all of that.
Horrible
which is
person.
A little surprising.
In April 2018, Joseph James D'Angelo was arrested at his home 40 years after it all started in Citrus Heights, California.
Which I said earlier, he did have eventually a family. He had 3 daughters,
Which is crazy.
and he had a wife as well, which eventually divorced him.
Deserved.
Yeah, definitely deserved. I would not stay relying on somebody.
Red flag number
person
one.
for the rest of their life.
Red flag number 1.
Right.
Serial killer.
That's the biggest red flag. The trial began in 2020. It provided an opportunity for survivors and families to confront him. So in August of 2020, he pled guilty to multiple charges and was ultimately sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, which is definitely a rightful,
Also deserved.
deserving charge right there. So the weird thing, when he was convicted, it wasn't in an actual courtroom. It was a makeshift kind of stage thing in a university ballroom, which is, I feel like, a little bit of a liability. He did kind of prey on children. Now he's put into a school of children. So it's a little weird being in that environment.
Yeah, I can't escape it, apparently. During his confession, D'Angelo claimed he had an inner personality, which is also here a cop-out
A little
get
bit of a cop-out.
get out of a sentence, which, by the way, didn't work. No,
Oh yeah, it didn't do anything for him. It kind of just made him look more of like a psychopath. Did you say his name? His name is Jerry, by the way, which is a very basic kind of name, which I feel like is a little bit of a, like, he kind of came up with that on the spot. So definitely a little bit of a cop out.
Pull the deck of the cards out and use the
Right,
first one.
a little bit of a reverse card,
Well,
which didn't work for him. So.
You want to say that quote right there?
What?
This one right here. The one on the bottom.
Oh yeah. So he said, I didn't have the strength to push him out. He made me. He went with me. It was like in my head. I mean, he's a part of me. I didn't want to do those things. I pushed Jerry out and had a happy life. I did all those things. I destroyed all their lives. So now I've got to pay the price. This was during his interrogation, which again did nothing for him. It just made him look more of a psychopath.
Which he was.
So thank you for joining in on the podcast. This is Tyler and Gavin. Thanks very much.